Hello friends, hope you are well. Happy Australia Day for the coming Tuesday. Happy long weekend to those who took the Monday off. And happy to those who will just chuck a sickie. But be careful, the evidence isn't just circumstantial this time. Your boss might think you're up to something. Welcome to the Day Report, home of tech and telco news from all around Australia and beyond. Just like the Yanks, we don't believe any America exists. Maybe it hasn't existed for the last 4 years. Maybe now it will exist because Biden? Anyway, those are paid actors. Haha. Moving on, we have some great news for you today. We have Google threatening to remove Google from Australia. Kogan gets another kick in the wallet. Rule of voice could soon be heard in hi-fi. And Optus goes 5G in Perth. Thanks for jumping in. Make sure to like this video if you did and subscribe to support this channel and get notified of all new videos. Let's roll the intro. It's unworkable, shouts Google from the top of their giant pile of money. The media code from Australia, that is. That's what's unworkable. Welcome back to the show. Australia versus Google. Who will get voted off the island? I'm sure many of you remember the media code from 2020. Links below if you need an in-depth catch-up. The elevator pitch is the ACCC is leading a law that will force Google and Facebook to pay for news that they index on their search engine. And this hasn't gone down well for Google, generating an intense campaign to rally ordinary Australians. Unfortunately, no one seems to care much. Life goes on. Welcome to Australia. Personally, as much as Google is evil and does plenty of evil things, and those evil things are very questionable and fairly evil, but hey, their motto is do no evil. I don't think Google should pay for news that media generates to have their pages show in results, as the media corpos lock down their content behind paywalls anyway. And like I said in the initial video about this topic last year, links below, if Google is providing News Corps with clicks and views, then technically they are providing a service and are benefiting News Corp companies and their websites by pushing people to them. Now, if you jump into any News Corp's website and read about this law, you will get a pretty clear bias. So read it with a grain of salt. And as mentioned in my previous video, the law is not ready for showtime either. It will do more damage than good for now, and Google should not be using the news media content without paying them. But they're not really using it at the moment, and the law should force Google to pay everyone, not just the big news corps as it stands with the laws today. So here we are, things are escalating significantly. Google is saying that the Australian lawmakers just do not understand how the internet works, or at least how it should. But the reality is that the media code doesn't break the internet per se, it breaks apart revenue streams for Google. After all, it's always about money. Billions of it, and Google doesn't want to share their toys. The ACCC tried to soften the blow back in December, but again Google has come back saying it's not good enough, touting that it is an unmanageable financial and operational risk for Google to follow such a law. Google is now threatening to remove Google search altogether from Australia. And first of all, damn Google, how dramatic, such a high school rebuttal. Though maybe kind of scary if you remember you might have to start using Bing. That's a scary thought. You see, 95% of all searches in Australia are via Google, and the 5% is people who search for how to download Google Chrome on Bing. But on the other hand, there's about $4 billion worth of ad revenue that Google mines from Australia annually. So, question, is this a bluff? Or are they willing to drop $4 billion in revenue just to teach Australia a lesson? And at this point, I feel like the ACCC should just let them out of spite. I would say that Google is pretty much holding the country to ransom. Now, without flip-flopping too much, Google's monopoly on the internet is significant and gives them too much power, and I'm sure I don't have to go into how they control what you see. But imagine if multiple other countries forced Google to leave. After all, DuckDuckGo is a viable option. Bing never was. Google is working on services that will hopefully provide revenue to news corpos such as News Showcase, which is a service that is said to give $1 billion to news corporations from around the world in the next 3 years. But it is yet to be available in Australia, and $1 billion over 3 years for the whole world isn't much at all. Now, Google is playing the fear game here, and it is starting to really get on my nerves, and there is a middle ground here, I'm sure, but the middle ground requires a give and take, and Google isn't very good at giving, unless you are France. Apparently, they got a little bit of it, a snippet of it, for snippets rather than full-on news articles. Now, here is my prediction as to what will happen if all this blows up. Every time your location is set to Australia and you navigate to google.com to search something, a big warning page will tell you how bad the Australian media code is and this is the fault of that code, blah, 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 blah. You won't be able to search anything, so instead you will navigate to Bing or DuckDuckGo to find a VPN, then set your location to any other country who seems to not have a problem with Google apart from Spain. Don't do Spain, and then you can freely navigate back to google.com and continue your life searching for whatever you want. Also, I expect Google to do a blackout day where they turn off search for Australia as a sample, a bit of a warning, a prospect of a time to come if the media code does not change. So who's getting the short end of the stick? Australians, right? Well, maybe, but we do not want to negotiate with terrorists, because that's what Google is acting like. In fact, Prime Minister Scott Morrison said Australia would not respond to these threats. He said, Australia makes our rules for things you can do in Australia. That's done in our parliament. It's done by our government, and that's how things work here in Australia. People who want to work with that in Australia, you're very welcome. But we don't respond to threats. Taking one step back, if Australia wins against Google and they come to the table with some sort of agreement, this will cost Google more in the long run because many more countries will do the same. And so I think Google is willing to lose that $4 billion of Aussie gold instead of setting a precedent for others to do so again and again to them in other countries. While certain owners of certain news corps might be very keen to get their money from Google, the reality of it is Google is kind of what the internet is all about. Again, without flip-flopping too much, Google is all about getting results to people when they search for things. They don't really care about paying other people to let them index them. So, will Google remove Google from Australia? Well, with the current threats, we have to wait and see. February 12th will bring the final vote. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Let's move on to our next story. Kogan has just not learned their lesson at all and took another hit from the ACMA. This time around, it was $310,000 fine for breaching the spam laws. This, of course, comes after the $350,000 fine for misleading customers back in December. So it looks like Kogan is making plenty of money to afford these fines. So maybe it's just a business as usual, it's just part of business, I suppose. Here is what the ACMA chair Narinda Laughlin had to say. The ACMA received complaints from a number of recipients of Kogan's emails expressing their frustration and concern with Kogan's practices, and ACMA sent Kogan multiple compliance alerts before commencing this investigation. Yeah, they were warned. So what happened? Well, Kogan and some other employees, whoever do the clickings, sent out 42 million emails without the ability to unsubscribe. Instead, it led the users down a rabbit hole of creating a Kogan account and password to action the unsubscribe, thus breaking the anti-spam laws. First off, all 42 million emails, that's a lot. That's a pretty healthy database. I'm pretty sure I got a few, but instead, using the technology of Gmail, I tagged it as spam. Now, O'Loughlin added that businesses must comply with the unsubscribe requirements in the spam rules. This investigation makes clear that businesses can't force customers to set a password and log in to unsubscribe from receiving commercial messages. Kogan has now accepted a 3-year court-enforceable undertaking, which will require it to properly train its staff for sending marketing messages, appoint an independent consultant to review its systems, and regularly report back to ACMA on actions made on customers' complaints. Let me know your thoughts below. I personally hate any email that makes me jump through hoops to unsubscribe. Also, in regards to spam, a good trick is when signing up to a new website, in the name where your first name would go, put the name of the website that you're signing through. Let's say Kogan. And then when you receive some spam emails and it says, hey, Mr. somebody, or hey, Kogan, you'll know who sold your information. Let's jump into our next story. $2 million worth of grants for a new trial to improve voice communications in rural areas have been awarded, and the recipients of these are none other than NBN Co, Conceritol, and Zetifi. I mean, you all know who NBN Co is, but who are the other two? Well, Conceritol is a Queensland-based telecommunication company specializing in satellite, VoIP, mobile, video conferencing, and wireless communication networks for enterprise, the mining industry, ISPs, and carriers working in remote and emerging watching regions. And Zetifi is a wireless network company that creates ruggedized off-grid optimized wireless network devices and systems to help solve connectivity problems for people in rural and remote areas. The trials are booked in to start in July this year and involve low-band fixed wireless solutions across NBN Co's fixed wireless and satellite networks, as well as Telstra high-capacity radio concentrator network. Conceritol will deliver up to 200 trial voice services in the Cocos Islands and Norfolk Islands, providing better VoIP services to mobile phones dependent on satellite links. Now, Zetifi will deliver up to 50 trial voice services to provide improved Wi-Fi calling for farms in rural and remote areas of New South Wales and Northern Victoria. To make sure rural services stay connected, nothing will change in their current setups unless better alternatives are found through these trials. Now, Minister for Communication, Urban Infrastructure, Cities and the Arts, Paul Fletcher, said the trials are a great opportunity for new players to demonstrate new ways to provide better voice services more in line with changing consumer needs, particularly for greater mobility. And in particular, pleased to see two small innovative companies, Conceritol and Zetifi, in this first triage of grants. Minister for Regional Communications Mark Colton said these trials are about identifying new options to deliver voice calls in remote areas. So it's important that the new technology is tested across a range of localities. Ensuring the rural Australians have access to robust and resilient phone services is a priority for the federal government, which is why we are funding these trials to test what will and won't work for remote communities. Finally, let's jump into our last topic, a very short one at that. Optus has flicked the switch on the Perth Optus Stadium to connect stadium goers to their fast 5G network. If you have a compatible headset and are on the Optus network, you'll be able to enhance your next stadium visit with 5G. While I don't see exactly how 5G will improve your experience, it will be a much less crowded network and you'll be able to get top speeds on your phone so you can enjoy Netflix in 4K while watching your favorite sports team on the field in real life. And on that potentially politically unstable internet land, we have to end this episode. Thank you very much for watching. Make sure to like this video if you did and subscribe if you'd like to see more, and of course to support this channel. Thanks for watching and bye!